YouTube world. We'll have to figure out where they are and what we're doing there. We should be good, Xander.
Okay, we can call the meeting to order.
Do I need to make these big? Dirt?
Everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yep, yeah, so good.
Okay, all in favor?
You put my name on it, my name was.
I move we approve minutes,
Minutes?
we can amend that.
Yeah, I didn't have my
Motion
name
to
on it.
approve the minutes, all in favor? Aye.
Derek?
Yeah.
You're my hero.
Yeah,
Amendment.
thank you. I don't get that often.
Well, it's well deserved.
Roger, I'll put you in when I get home.
Okay, thanks.
I'll amend that.
Okay, so Lisa, yesterday forwarded a draft that was then forwarded to everyone. Hopefully you had some time to take a look at it. I think we would begin with Lisa here as a guest.
Sure. Yeah, I just have some slides I was gonna kind of pull up and just help walk kind of through. See if I can, whoops, let's see. Share my screen here. Oh, can I share my screen actually?
I just gave you permission.
Okay, let's see. Oops. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yeah, if you could make it bigger, it would be better.
Okay, is
I
that
may be able to do it too. Hold on, I know I'm gonna do it. Hold on. I'm gonna do it here. There,
okay?
except for
So-
Dave's.
Great. I just wanted to kind of run through just a kind of quick overview of the report, and then answer any questions and kind of the next steps here. But just kind of reiterating what the project purpose and overview was: looking at the flood risk, both near term, long term, hearing from the community. What are the priorities? How do community members utilize the area? Coming up with some general adaptation practices. I feel like, this is a small part of the waterfront, but by conveying some of these overall strategies, hopefully folks in the community can read through that and think through some of the ideas for their own properties. It's not, just for the town dock. And then provide some high-level concept design plan for kind of a roadmap or a starting point to make, further decisions and move forward with, further engineering design and permitting, and then hopefully funding. And then the final report, putting this all together in the package. So, looking back to 2024 and the January storms, I mean, this report and, just having gone through this planning, hopefully is setting up the town of Castine for now having a document that, you can work from and build upon. But what we're trying to do is look at this really important asset that the town has as a whole, in addition to the neighboring properties, and what can we do to hopefully limit the damage and destruction that you're, potentially going to see from storms, either in the near term, but, when we look out into the 2100 timeframe on a more regular time period. What we've done here with this map, this is showing our flood inundation maps. And so we've looked at those two scenarios: the highest astronomical tide and then the 100-year storm. Hopefully you can see my my mouse. Oh, there we go. The black line is the current hat. That's highest astronomical tide. That's twice a year.
We're still seeing the intro page. Yeah.
Oh, you are? I feel like this always happens to me. Shoot. Well,
If you select the
On the left side of the
slide on the left column, just select the slide you're working on.
oh, maybe. Oh, you know what I think it is? I have two screens up and I think I'm sharing. I'm not sure what's happening here. I'll just use this. I think this always happens. Okay, here's that picture I was just talking about for the January 2024 storms that, you all lived through, the whole coast of Maine experience. But just, the purpose of the study, I think, is really valuable in the fact that what we want to try to do is minimize the damage in the ways that we have available to us. So when we look at the different flood scenarios and what we selected for the basically like the target elevation ranges are the highest astronomical tide, as I mentioned, and the 100-year storm. Looking at this black line, that's our current day highest astronomical tide. So that's your king tide, what you're seeing, up to 2 times a year. As we look the blue line here, that is the 2050 hat. So, that's not that far away when you're thinking about your king tides twice a year. You're looking at almost half of that town dock area covered. And then we're looking further out and we see the 2100 storm. And what's actually interesting about this, and I know I've shared this in the past, but when you this this image and you look at those water levels and then you look at the predicted or the present day 100-year storm, which is that green line. I mean, it's almost right along that same area. So I don't think that sometimes people hear the word 2100 and think, well, I'm not going to be alive, what do I care? But obviously I think we need to care about this because this is an important resource for the community. So the report walks through, kind of the reasons we or how we came to these flood elevations. And so you can read through that. It's all in the report and we've talked about it before as well. But basically those are 8 flood scenarios based on the highest astronomical tide and the 100-year.
Those are just tides, those are no storm surges, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the 100-year swell does consider storm surge, but not wave action. And so it'd be, remiss to not include that. So when we look at the FEMA flood maps, which takes into account wave action, keep in mind this map is from 2016, so it's, we don't have the predictive modeling associated with it. But this map here shows you wave action, and this this hatched line is showing the designated boundary between the V zone, which is the higher waves, 3 feet or greater, and then the AE zone, which you'd see, 1.5 feet. That's kind of how they make those distinguishing boundary lines. So, again, the most damaging wave action is going to be along the edge there of the town dock area. But, as sea levels rise and you're getting a greater depth of water, waves can become more problematic. They become stronger. So this is again where we're looking at, it's kind of right around that little median area, what we're targeting and what we think about when we're planning for these future flood adaptations is what are the elevations that we want to target for. And that also goes back to this table. When we look at adding the predicted sea level rise values, we're getting, let's say, HAT 2050 8.7. Well, when we look at the FEMA map and the wave action, we see elevation 10. So, we want to go higher than what we're seeing just necessarily in the near term sea level rise scenarios. So you're kind of taking all of this into consideration as we get to where I will come to with the concept design. But also, what are we protecting? It's not a one size fits all approach here. There's different assets, different types of assets, and different means to adapt them for, to hopefully limit damage or, reduce flooding on site. So this is kind of the engineering side of it all and what we've looked at. And then as we went through the project, 2 community forums. The first one was the site visit, and then hearing from the community, just more of a larger scale waterfront use, and then honing in more on, what's really important about the town dock, what do you envision for that area? And really, we had some common themes: maintaining the public access, enhancing what's there, balancing those uses that are, already there with the parking, recreation. I didn't sit for the meeting last week, but just hearing, I wasn't sure if it was a town dock, but the potential for lobsterman use, like, is that something that the town would want to enhance? Investing in the public amenities, potentially reclaiming space from parking and relocating that to other nearby locations. Obviously, the point of this study, looking at resilience and how we can adapt for future sea level rise. We heard over and over just how important the town dock is to kind of the town of Castine's identity. And so maintaining that as part of this project. And then collaborating with partners is really essential, you know, MMA and then others that are in the area. You know, there are things that the town can do in the short term, near term, but you know, ultimately a longer term plan, I think, you know, as everyone I think agrees is what would be kind of the most bang for your buck. Oh, whoops. So kind of looking at all these different studies, I had a little transition here, but you know, the town has already done a lot of work. You know, starting back, I found documents between MMA and the town from, you know, 2010, just kind of this joint planning sessions of what the waterfront could be. And then, you know, surveys have been done, waterfront conditions assessments reports have done. You know, there was this planning document from 2023 that showed potential float outline. And then 2019, there was similar study done as part of a larger Penobscot Bay project looking at flood vulnerabilities. So building upon this, kind of not reinventing the wheel, what we have, you know, identified the assets at risk, heard from the community, understanding what's been done, and then looking at what kind of tools are in our toolbox as we think through kind of the strategies, what would make sense for this site. And this slide has been shared or similar rendition has been shared, but you know, you have some options here. You know, do nothing. I mean, you could just repair what you have year to year, kind of wait and see what happens. How bad is it going to get? I mean, that is an option. You can protect what you have, and that would be, you know, your seawall or adding in, you know, raising the seawall, adding in maybe a wall along the perimeters, I'll show, accommodating, elevating those buildings, you know, flood proofing those buildings, retreating, you know, relocating maybe some of the non-essential buildings down there if possible. And I do want to make it clear too that, you know, these are just kind of ideas that we're throwing out there and with some recommendations, but you know, it's a starting point and again, hopefully like a roadmap for the town. And no way do I, you know, this is what the town must do. I don't want that to ever think that's, you know, what we're conveying here. But what we have done is kind of put all this information together, working with Tandem Landscape and develop this kind of concept design. And what it includes, you can see in the report, you know, there's kind of various options for some of the assets. And I think one of the most important assets is looking at that, you know, retaining wall, because that's sort of the foundation of the town dock. And ultimately, you know, there is a design life left in that. So the town can, I think, first and foremost, as we have talked about, is do an inspection, kind of understand what the existing condition is. It seems it's been a while since the last one occurred, so I think that first and foremost, I think that is a strong recommendation. And you don't necessarily have to just elevate that wall because, as I've mentioned in the past, it's an expensive project. You know, you have maybe 25 years of life potentially, you know, based on what the average lifespan is of a steel sheet pile retaining wall. So you could leave the wall as is, and what we've presented here is, you know, either assuming that you're going to keep the existing wall, and what you can do, if you look at that flood map, I mean, the bulk of the asset is the parking area. And so if you wanted, you know, a reasonable recommendation would be that you could elevate that parking area. We're recommending around a target elevation around 11. Again, that kind of keeps it above within the current base flood elevation. But when we're looking at the 2050 highest astronomical tide and the 100-year, you know, you're right around there. So this is an asset that can accommodate some flooding. It's not as though it's a hospital or a residence that you don't want to flood at all. This, you know, would be unusable at those times, but would be a great improvement and, you know, minimize the constant efforts that you would have to do to repair and so forth. But what that would mean is that you'd want to put some sort of concrete kind of cap wall around that perimeter. And what we've shown here is having some access ramps for ADA compliance that would get you down. We've removed some of the parking right along the water, and that would allow sort of a more of a flow with the town dock. So you could have room for, you know, community events and people to put chairs down or eat or what have you.
You say raising to 11, what does that mean?
The elevation 11. So when you look at what the height is, and that's based on survey data that we have. So what is the existing elevation? I have the report, but it's around I want to say it ranges from around elevation 8.3 to 9 point something in some areas along the top of that wall. So what you would want to do is elevate that to elevate to 11. So 11 is, just basically when you're thinking about if you're looking at mean lower low water is 0, you would be 11 feet.
So you're basically saying add 2 feet of altitude to the outer edge of the parking lot?
Well, no, you'd want to raise the whole parking lot area. I'm talking about a wall around there because if you keep the retaining wall, because again, the retaining wall to elevate that, that's a project in and of itself, aside from just the parking. I mean, there's options here. And
Okay, so you're recommending that the whole parking lot could go up 2 feet, is that
yes,
correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, and then, I mean, I think maybe a future project would be look at elevating that wall. But this kind of allows you to have an area of, usability for those, like what we heard from the community, having a little more space that removes some of that parking area. And again, when you look at that, I'll go back to this map. This is this hatch line showing where the greatest wave action is. If you make that more of a, could be a green space, that's, I think better. It's less maintenance overall for the town. So just some considerations there. And then we've put in these, pedestrian pathways to connect and hopefully connect up further to Main Street where, restaurants and other shops are.
It looks like you've sort of feathered the increase in height down to the Academy's property and down to C Street at the other end. And
Yes,
I guess
exactly.
the Academy would have the option, of course, of raising theirs to match.
Exactly. So all that would be like a ramped, so that you're not impacting their property if they're like, I'm not ready to do that. There's other things too, like putting in some sort of like floodgate as well to kind of, if you are higher to, making sure that, you're not adding flooding concerns to that property. But yeah, ultimately it would be like a ramped, down to their property if they don't elevate. Um, we've also added in some vegetation. I know there was like concern like the gazebo and shading, but then we also heard we didn't want to have impacts on views either. So just minimal vegetation. I did speak with Oliver Associates and I know that the pump station plans are underway. So this I know is going to remain, that's going to be its own project underway. The bathroom, the report shows, what an elevated bathroom facility could look like. There's one down in Falmouth. And you could, depending on how much area you have, relocate the harbor master's office, moving it back and then elevating that building, kind of having a larger bathroom area with combination with the harbor master's office. That would kind of eliminate, you're still having it in a location that's important for, function, but it's kind of keeping it out of, again, that highest wave action zone. We've laid out the floats based on the 2023 plan. Again, trying not to reinvent the wheel. And this is obviously an area I think that would require additional studies to kind of understand like how many, if you want to expand further out, what are we looking for capacity and use of the area? How much transient, how much would be more of the seasonal rental, idea. And so these, as far, we have recommended doing wave attenuation floats on that outer end. I think, to make that be more efficient, I think it would be further out would be a recommendation. But again, this was what the town had worked through at some point. So again, we don't want to reinvent the wheel there. We've
I have a
got,
question.
sure,
So everything in brown, is that going to be the wave attenuation type float?
just the outer end.
Or just
Yeah,
the other?
yeah, that would, I mean, because they're expensive floats, and so you're not going to get any benefit from the inner floats to be wave attenuating. And there is an image in the report, actually it's in South Carolina, but it's a company that GEI has used on other projects. And it shows actually, pretty decent storm, and it shows exactly how effective these wave attenuating floats can be. You can see the waves hitting up against the end, and then just internally in the, inner float area, it's pretty calm. So that's not gonna, that will help with wave action. That's not gonna eliminate the flooding. And
So
they,
I have a question, another question, follow-up. Okay, so normally we pull all the floats out in the off season. So
Mhm.
are you saying these should stay in the water year round? All
Yeah,
the
these
floats
type of
stay in?
floats would stay in year round.
So the rest of them would have to be left in also?
No, you wouldn't necessarily. I mean, and then that would kind of, yeah, we'd have to kind of look at consideration for that. But no, you don't necessarily have to keep all the floats in at that point because you don't want to be, yeah, you don't want to be keeping like the timber floats in there. We do have a recommendation too to utilize piles in place of some of the chain anchor systems. That just kind of allows the floats. It's a one strategy that, pilings are have a longer life term and then it kind of allows the floats to um help with the flooding and the uplift forces and so forth. um
Lisa, I have a question for you. Has there been any consideration given to phasing of anything? So if this is the sort of nearer term plan, how does that reconcile and how does it relate to the longer term plan? When the sea level rises to a certain degree that we're inundated even at this level, how does this get backstopped by plan number 2?
yeah, well, we have broken it down in the report, kind of some near-term recommendations, short-term and longer term. So this is sort of the overall looking at, again, our recommendations for this are within the 2050, 2070 timeframe. Climate science is, not an exact science right now. And, I would, when we get to 2100, I think that we're going to see more, things change as far as how we're developing these sea level rise predictions. So, also the design life of these, what we're proposing is if you put it in, let's say 2040, you're not going to have this 70-year, necessarily, it's not going to last that long. So, that's the time frame that we would be shooting for because ultimately recognizing that again these projects are expensive and it may take like multi-year planning and funding to be able to install a large extension of a float system. So but we do have it broken down into the report, kind of what you can kind of think about near term. I don't know, does that answer the question or
Yeah, to some degree.
yeah, okay. um The other recommendation that we've removed some of the parking by the boat ramp. Again, a little bit more green space there. And I do know that is where the floats are stored now. That was one community feedback comment about, do we have to store them there? And that's obviously not necessarily related to flood adaptation strategies, but just a consideration. It did seem like a potential opportunity for additional, picnicking area or seating area for community events. And then the boat ramp, is a challenge. We haven't modified it because, ultimately I think the larger issue is elevating the parking lot, or if you decide to do the seawall, the retaining wall, do that. And then once that decision is made, you're gonna wanna work through the grade change that you would have to account for that elevation in the parking. I mean, ultimately, and I know it's hard, this is just not a great location. I mean, from a flood adaptation perspective, boat ramps can handle flooding. It's just not usable. And so it's a tricky one. We don't have a really great answer for that. I mean, I know that there was some work done to try to, potentially gain an easement for the property to the north. If the town could work on that to help kind of make this a little bit more user friendly. But we don't, we haven't included trailer parking for the boat for any launch, trailers. So kind of remained the same parking sizes as exist today. Um, and then, yeah, we've maintained the access between MMA, just adding in some green space, and then trying again to have this kind of pedestrian connectivity to the greater, Castine town area. So this is what we have developed for the concept plan. And then, as I mentioned, we've broken this into kind of timeframes and, immediate items that you could do. And we've provided the dollar signs and then in the report kind of gives you an idea Like, could you do this in the current budget cycle? Or, some of these are even just putting in like an alert system, or you could do some flood barriers, this upcoming winter, that you could install around the bathroom. So, things like that, that easy enough to do, don't take planning. Some of the longer term ones are, the harbor master's office idea of either, flood proofing it where it is, or again, the bathroom was a really identified as a very important community asset. And so I do think, given that seasonal, I know a lot of folks had said that they would really love to see the year-round bathroom. That could be a larger project that, you look at elevating it and again, relocating that harbor master's office to maybe kind of have it all encompassing. So this is all laid out in the report. I just kind of wanted to give an overview here. But yeah, happy to take any further questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Could you go back to the screen where the whole layout is?
Yeah.
That one there. Okay, so I understand it. So you were talking about building a wall around the parking lot? You're elevating it 2 feet
It looks
and then adding a wall around that?
So there's two thoughts here. So one is, let's say you get the inspection report back from an inspector and they say this wall has very little life left in it. I think at that point, the town might want to start to think about, okay, we know this is going to flood. What can we do what can we do to alleviate some of the flooding? And I think at that point, you're going to want to think about elevating that retaining wall. Because if you're going to have to spend all this money to fix it, I think at that point you want to fix it right. So we've kind of left the options open. That's one avenue. The other avenue is that report might come back and say, you have 25 years left on this, wall, like maybe do some additional maintenance and repairs, but it's in fine shape. In that case, you don't need to be spending necessarily millions of dollars to do that. I mean, if you want to, knowing that the future that you might have to, that's the option the town can make. Again, these are sort of just kind of giving you some ideas to think about. If in the, elevating a parking lot is not, I mean, it's expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than having to elevate an entire retaining wall. This would be about, again, 2 feet higher. You could do that. Again, I don't want to throw out necessarily a number without having, but what we would need to do in that case, if you're going to keep the wall at its existing elevation, is accommodate, you'd put this kind of like a retaining wall essentially around that area. And then what we would do is accommodate that with some access ramps to get down to these other structures. So they would still be at their current elevation. You're just kind of elevating that parking area. And what I can do as part of the final package too is have a visual for this, a cross section. I think that would probably be valuable to show you what this would look like, where the cars would park with kind of this wall and then the ramp. So we can add that in.
Sounds good.
Like I said, I think it really comes down to the inspection report, just because there's spots of that wall that are, don't look great. But again, knowing kind of some of the history of it, it does have design life left in it. So it could just be kind of put the Band-Aids on now. And I mean, again, some of these studies they could be, the planning, the next phase is like really getting into the design and the engineering. I mean, they can take several years when you get through the permitting of all that. So it's really a choice for the town. The town very well would say, I want to keep the wall at the elevation and just do kind of, what's shown on the plan here and just do the parking. I mean, that still gets you flood, that ultimately meets the goal of flood adaptation and, hopefully avoiding what, the image from the 2024 storms here.
David, you put out some notes today. David?
I think that's a debate later.
Dave,
Yep.
Do you want to talk about the sheet bulkhead and what kind of condition it is in?
say that again. You want to read your notes?
Just a second. I think we don't have to keep her on line to talk about. Sorry, I turned my hearing aids down so that I wouldn't confuse myself.
No.
think, with reading it.
Do you wanna talk a bit about what you think the condition of the sheet pile, bulkhead
Yes.
is in?
Um. The condition of the sheet pile, except for the top, is in quite good condition. Xander and I most recently did some ultrasonic thickness gauging, and we came out with about 3/8 of an inch. And
I agree that we did that, but the recommendation is for us to get a survey of it, and I think we should leave Lisa to that recommendation and not debate the
I agree.
retaining wall thickness. I mean, I think we need to have that discussion, but I'm not sure now is the time for it.
So you mean more thorough testing of the sheet rock?
Well, I think that's coming out as one of the major recommendations, is that the next stage is to get a real assessment of it, and ours was a while ago, we were under there, that.
Yeah, it was a few years ago.
So I think we, as a committee, we can take this as a recommendation and then discuss what we think of our history and whether we're going to act again to look at it, or whether we're going to hire an engineering consulting firm to give us an evaluation.
I think it also speaks to the idea of what I was talking about before in phasing, and Lisa, you mentioned it too. Like depending on it seems like sort of a linchpin of the property of the lot. Because if it is in decent shape and will last another 20-25 years, then I think that says we have a different plan for what we include in the initial concept. You know, if that bulkhead really needs to be replaced sooner and is failing more quickly than we think, then that probably means a different kind of investment and a different kind of plan for what we think we're trying to accomplish here.
Right. And we have laid out both of those kind of avenues in the recommendations, you know, just for consideration. But again, ultimately, it does really come down to what's the condition? What are we looking at?
So, I think, you know, this is a draft. I think we all need to take it home and really parse it. And I think, for instance, you suggested a little more detail, the cross-section detail would be valuable to input into the draft. for
Yeah,
our
on this,
review. And if there are other things like that before we get the draft, but once we get the draft, I think we have some hard work ahead to review it and start looking at that itemization of phases, deciding whether we're going to allocate.
did I lose you?
Survey, I did a substantial survey back in 07 on the whole structure. And what we did with your help and looking around and stuff, the condition really hasn't changed much. And so my assessment is the bulkhead is in pretty good condition, and it's likely to last many years if we continue to keep zincs replaced and patch painting it. And to spend a whole bunch of money on another engineering study, which isn't going to tell us anything more. And, you know, I may not be as qualified as whoever we might get, but it's not rocket science. And I have done a bunch of this stuff here and other places.
I trust your assessment, David. Thank you.
So are there, yes,
I just got a question, Lisa, and this came out of public forums and before about either, cause I said if we did new sheet piles, I'd love to just encapsulate them all around where the town dock is. Make that solid ground rather than sitting on piles and lift that up to whatever it needs to be to match the raised parking lot or whatever. But also, Lisa, on this plan, it doesn't look like you've looked at whether or not we should fill the void between the Acadia dock and the town dock with more like dock space and then put the docks from beyond that, whether they're on piles or whether they could be landmass of the Army Corps or whoever would let us do that.
I think that's
So-
a good issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I did look into the regulations related to that. Because, if you're gonna be going over the water, it has to be water dependent. And I mean, there's some case to say it could be water dependent, if you're expanding out those floats and like, that could essentially be a pier that's running parallel to the town dock, and there's potentials there, but there is, like shoreline zoning too has an allowance for, you can actually extend a deck. It'd have to be like cantilevered, so you'd have to kind of pin whatever supports back to the wall, for like a downtown revitalization project, so that's, I don't know, some gray areas there as far as permitting goes, but hesitant to put that because of the unknown certainty of, if I just showed a deck over water, it's like, well, what are they doing? That's not going to be allowed. So not to say it can't be, but we've kind of expanded that space by removing some of the parking. And so that's how we presented it. But I mean, again, welcome all this feedback too. I think if, you have a chance to look through the report, has all this, and then, feed it through Derek to me or however you want to do it. Yeah, I'm obviously open to, want to make sure we're capturing what the town is looking for.
So am I hearing you right, that if the idea of moving bulkheads out and claiming more land from the sea is pretty much a non-starter?
The bulkhead, yeah, that's a non-starter to move the bulkhead, but not to say you can't put some sort of like pier out there. It has, anything over the water has to be, it's water dependent use. It can't be in the, upland.
So it's
So,
really the argument that we make about it.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said it's really would be in the argument that we make about it as to what it's for.
Yeah, sorry, my dog.
When you look at the area between the town dock and the Acadia dock, that area shallows out to the point that it's not useful for much of anything. And I think a good case could be made for extending the pier out another 10, 15 feet. That would give us more basic surface area on the land to use. And if that was done and use that for the green space that's proposed and not get rid of parking places, I think would be worthwhile pursuing.
Yeah, no, and that, again, that is a little different than the kind of filling in that space between the town dock and the Acadia. Apologize for my dog in the background. But that you could see would be part of like a, water access improvement project that I think would be an easier permitting task.
I think you're gonna get a lot of pushback when it comes to eliminating parking. That drawing right there has lost about 25% of the parking down there.
But
And that's not gonna happen, and it shouldn't happen. I think that, and as far as those outside attenuating floats, I think there's a good case that they should go out substantially further than that because of the traffic trying to get around the new boat.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we started this whole process, is because of the safety issue of getting around the new boat. And I don't think that solves it. I think it helps it a little bit, but it doesn't solve it. It actually probably solves the situation that was down there previous to the new boat, but that new boat and the new dock are going way out, and it's gonna be really difficult for sailboats and such on the outgoing tide to get around that. And I think the plan has got to include that.
Yeah, and of course, we have said we were gonna wait to try and do anything until we really saw the effect of the dock. Many of us, I think, are concerned, just like what you're saying, about the effect's gonna be. But to really know what the effect is gonna be, we need to observe a little bit what's happened once it's completed. But the idea, and I think this plan is a good first step, but in reality, I think having a continuous, floating breakwater that can also double as docking further out to protect what we've got, will go a long way to mitigating things. Because if we don't have a lot of wave action coming in on the parking lot and so on, I'm not convinced raising the parking lot makes any sense.
You know, David, I agree. What are you trying to protect? It's parking.
Well,
And
I
there's
don't,
nothing
I
there
don't
other than-
agree with that. I think
I-
right now, if you could add 4 feet to the sheet pile and 2 feet.
I agree.
To the parking lot, and then you could park and look over it, which is gonna be
I
I
think
mean,
that,
you're not gonna have a parking lot down there that you can't sit in the car and look over.
why couldn't you have a bulkhead that goes across, that you could close 2 sections? And so it's 2 or 3 feet up, whatever it is. I mean, NOAA predicts the height changes at 1.9 millimeters a year. So, I mean, I do think there's there's an issue that it flooded. But I think with wave attenuation and a bulkhead that's raised, and then just drop in some kind of gate in a couple of openings before a storm, you'd accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. You could
Well,
raise
As
the
long as you
bathroom.
can see over it,
Yeah,
sitting in a chair, then you could get that through, but.
yeah. But I mean,
that's.
they're not sitting in a chair in the parking lot.
If,
So out on they're not changing the height of the dock. You're not changing the height of the dock, so that matter of fact, we're talking about dropping a ramp down to the dock at its current elevation. Right? Am I wrong?
That's the way I understood it.
So this area, this would remain, the town dock would remain at its existing elevation, right? And we would elevate the parking area. Again, these are, but we're also saying, but you also could elevate the bulkhead as well. I mean, we want to present both options again, because like, we don't want to present something that maybe financially is just, 10 years down the road. So giving you some options to consider. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to ultimately elevate that bulkhead, that is an option that you could do as well as part of this project or future projects, I guess.
Got
And again, the float layout, was based on a 2023 layout that the town had put together. I agree that, going further out makes more sense. But again, that was from 2023, and again, prior to all the MMA and those changes. But as you're saying, kind of wait and see the effects. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and Lisa, is it a difficult thing to present a image like this, but without the parking lot raised and loss of parking spaces? Raise the parking lot right at the bulkhead level?
We could do that. I almost was thinking, what we could do too is show the existing parking on this, like where it is, to again kind of present these various thoughts for the community to move forward, because parking did come up as like the potential to relocate some of those spots to close by, maybe working with MMA. So we were trying to account for that feedback. But if it's like, we don't want to put this out in the public that you've taken away parking, we could certainly show that still there, and how and you're saying just keep it at its existing elevation. I'm sorry, did I hear you right?
Well, no, I think there is a potential to raise the elevation of the parking lot, but not at the loss of parking.
Oh,
We
I
don't
see.
need
So
that additional space.
I mean, you could raise the wall 3 feet.
Right.
And you could slope the parking lot up to it, so that 1 hour parking, which is where people sit in the car and eat and watch. It would be fine, and you're not elevating the whole parking lot, but you're elevating
I could
that
go with that.
space,
I could go with that.
where it just slopes up.
But I think any places where you penetrate through to go to the dock, you don't need a ramp down. What you need is an opening and
Right.
just drop a gate in.
Yeah.
I think
If
that makes a lot of-
you're going to have a wall and the area of the parking lot lower than that wall, and you're gonna be able to close it off. If you've got a major storm, you got more problems than just that.
I know you're trapped.
You've got a lot of stormwater runoff and overtopping of the bulkhead. And so you're gonna have a massive pump system.
With the wave attenuation, I mean, the wave action was the biggest problem.
Yeah, the idea of the wave attenuation.
Right.
To me is a much more powerful way to do it.
Are we still chasing this grant for $280,000? Is it something that's alive or dead or what?
It's a lot. We just can't do anything with it till we know what the ship looks like out there.
So is that
That's
part of
what
this
it's based on.
conversation or is it?
Well, it's a separate grant, but it's actually a do something grant, so we're gonna end up having to pay for some engineering to do something on that one. Cause that was talking about extending docks out and doing things, not investigating. So we may need to spend money on a engineering study to actually look at that. That was one of the.
And there are grants for
Right,
engineering
yeah.
studies
Right.
that,
That's good till 2032, just so you know. So it's like,
Say
so
again,
we got time.
that money is not around until 2030.
No, it's earmarked until then,
Sure.
so.
I'm gonna use it before that.
Is it in, I have a
Well,
question.
I'm not gonna wait till then, but
No.
I'm saying that it's good for 8 years, 6 years, whatever it was, 8
But that,
years.
that project is 7 times that.
I agree, but unfortunately, that's what we get is 280,000 is what we have on that.
So is that money that's already been spent on what's been done?
No.
No,
Oh, this is all new.
I'm just wondering, what would a string of pilings, I'm not sure how far out, and a bunch of wave attenuation floats, a whole nother level, what would that run?
Takes into account.
I don't know, you're asking the wrong guy for.
We have some very good piling installation people in town right now.
Yeah, no, I was thinking too, why we don't have steel pilings all the way
So,
out through that big round.
if I might
things out
interrupt
through, right.
here, Lisa. Do you have a sense of how long we could input for some revisions before this? When would you like to see some more concrete input from us?
I mean, it's, what do you think? Like, I mean, is 2 weeks or do you know, October 1st? I don't know. Like, what do you think? I mean, I think what would be helpful too is like read through the report and, just mark up this plan, write on it what, and we can, we can accommodate what you're looking for. So, yeah, I mean, is 2 weeks enough or I don't know. What do you think?
You could give us a week or two to input suggestions via email or something, and then cross collate
It
it.
seems like we should get together and come up with a suggestion, so she's not getting 17,000 different.
Page by page.
And I think, her suggestion of marking up this,
Yeah.
it makes it really easy to do.
And this is
Find a
what,
copy.
I think this is what people are gonna engage with, this is how people are gonna understand what we're talking about trying to do. I mean, it's good to have all the backup and all the information and all the data and all the, everything else.
Yeah.
And I think people will be interested in that too. I think this is the thing that people are gonna absolutely use to understand what it is that is being proposed.
Yeah.
So I think we should get that right.
Yeah, and
Bill,
I
think
initially,
on your point, now hold on just a second, please.
yeah,
On
sorry.
your point, if we were gonna do something, it would be a good time with the barges out there, the cranes, everything, to pound those. But we might wanna discuss, all right, what would we be talking about in the realm of things? And try to get some special town meeting money or something and get a quick engineering study. And then get those put in, cause we can activate that money at any time to start doing that. It's just we need a plan of action to do it.
Because that
They're
doesn't,
gonna be over there until.
that
a
doesn't
year.
cure everything that we're seeing here, but
Probably
it cures some of
At
it.
least next summer.
Next summer, that's not a lot of
They're
time.
not gonna move out of there until they're done there, so you're not gonna get another year.
Right, I know, but I was saying that getting, but I'm saying getting an engineering
So,
report would be a
I've
good
got
way
a
to
time
have
here,
an idea.
Lisa, let's,
And
2
we have a
weeks.
bridge to
Yeah.
build.
Let's say goodnight.
You wanna do
Yeah.
a second meeting, another meeting? Here.
Well, we have to decide a meeting,
Yeah.
but we will have revisions in the next 2 weeks
Okay,
for you. I'm not sure exactly when, but I'm going to give the committee 2 weeks to start looking at this report and coming up with something that is a summation of our input to then present to you.
okay, that sounds great. Just a quick like admin thing on the report. I noticed there was some format issues when it was converted to the PDF in the community survey section, but I've since fixed that. So my apologies, it's kind of funky. I can send out a fresh copy. But it just something happened. So anyway, it's a little off, but I can send a fresh copy around.
Okay, that would be welcome.
Okay.
Any
great.
further questions for Lisa?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Yeah. Good night.
Bye.
All right, thank you, everybody. I think we would move on here, unless we want to set before we move on a date. To look at this a little more closely, you give everyone through the weekend individually to look at it and then come up for early next week. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure.
So what's early the next week mean? What day?
Well,
You're talking later afternoon, I think.
Early next week.
it would be later afternoon.
Should we put a deadline on when we're gonna get something back to her? Maybe that's the best way to go.
Okay, well, then
So 14 days would be what, the 26th, 25th?
25th is gonna be 2 work weeks.
wanna do like the 25th, have another meeting on Thursday? And just hash it all out?
I think you have to
I'm
have a
gonna
meeting 2 or 3 days
Yeah,
before that.
Yes,
Before
yeah,
that.
I agree.
Alright, so like. I'm available
So the 25th, the 20th, whatever that is,
Wednesday,
That's
Saturday.
a Saturday.
well, 19th. No, I won't be, well, it could be.
I'm
Yeah,
kinda busy then.
Well, you got another wedding?
No, Fridays is off.
Oh, okay, that's,
Forty
all right.
I'm out of.
I thought you said the week of, I was thinking. you got another wedding.
No,
I think 23rd, 24th is good, I'm open, or the 25th, so.
I think we need to meet before the 25th,
Yeah.
knowing we're gonna get stuff
stuff
to
to
do.
it, yeah. And I think we should meet next week and then
How about a week from today?
the 18th,
Next Thursday.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Sure.
We can put down, there.
Okay. That means that everybody has a week to sort of pull out their own input and summarize their own input and bring it to the table. And then we'll start cutting and pasting.
So the 18th, 5 o'clock,
18th.
Thursday, okay.
And then you'll decide the next one after that, huh?
And this is a working session.
Gotcha.
they both are, right?
Well, so the 25th, are we going to, do we need to meet with Lisa and express it, or are we going to prepare a document and just?
I would just send it.
Yeah.
We just wanna mark something up and send it.
So we,
This turned into a lot of conversation that
it
really
does,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the 18th, we should be walking away with something that has pretty finalized edits that we want to then issue to her that week without a need for.
With another week to get all those
Right,
edits
there'll be
together.
changes on the 18th that we can insert and then get it out by the 25th.
Do we need a second meeting on the week of 22nd to the 26th?
Let's decide that next week.
Okay, I'm
Uh,
comfortable with that, but
when are you, when is the second meeting that you're looking at?
it
Nothing
would,
yet.
we'll decide next week.
Okay.
See how far we get.
The end of the next week, I'm not available. To me, one of the most important things in this report is gonna be that diagram, because that's what people are gonna look at. And we need to have something that really shows what our current thinking is, but it needs to be loose enough so that it can be adjusted to what it is without people getting excited that,
You gotta have people understand that we're not necessarily asking for that.
and I don't think that's it.
Yeah.
A year ago, that was it, but with the MMA dock and the new ship and the idea of a wave barrier, I think the wave barrier needs to be, and I think extending the pier out, the wharf area between the two docks to gain some additional land area, if you will. It'll be wood area rather than land area.
Well, everyone's gonna get a copy of what they've produced, and if you got your markers and your Sharpies and start sketching that up, and maybe we'll be able to pull something out of what we've had. Okay, Scott, you have a harbor master report?
Little one, dock hands are getting really short. I've been in the last few Saturdays, I will be down there this Saturday. I'll come back here to do that. And Paul's gonna do it Sunday. And then Amelia Griffith is gonna do Saturdays for the last 2 weeks. And I'm trying to get somebody else in my building to take Sundays. She rents from me downtown. Amelia does, and Fox can't, he's on the sailing team, so I don't, I can't depend on him to work a day on a weekend, so. We're working on it, but anyhow, it's, and we're only doing 10 to 2, Saturday and Sunday, and it's advertised in every venue that the town has, that it's a pump out time for anybody who wants to get pumped out. And I've been down there twice to do pump outs, and we were down there for lunch the other day, somebody came in and did a pump out.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
Nothing spices up a lunch.
I was gonna say, when we were talking about maneuverability and stuff,
Oh,
or
geez,
whatever,
man,
and that
that
plan
awesome.
there, I was like, yeah.
So when is the last day for pump out?
Whatever that last Sunday is in September.
Last Sunday is September, end of September, okay.
Yeah. And I scheduled with Holyoke for the 16th of October to pull the floats. And that, you have to go all the way to November 1st if you wanna find another high tide at 8-ish. And so that's done unless somebody has
That wouldn't be all bad.
Yeah, right, and longer floats, right?
And let's see, I think we need to talk about, and even with whatever we're doing here, we need to limit the number of dinghy permits
There's way too
issue
many.
out. It's just, there was 48 dinghies down there the other day, and there's probably room for 32 maybe. We're gonna have to do something with putting bat boards on the sides of
By the ramps.
by the ramp and in between the little opening that you used to be able to go out of, that you can't get out of now because dinghies are out there, so we put boards out there, planks out along, bolted to the face, going towards the parking lot, say 8 feet. That would eliminate any of those dinghies getting into that passageway. And we gotta do it on the other side because we've had 2 sunk dinghies under the ramp. So we gotta figure that out on both floats. So that's where that is, it's a mess down there. The dinghy situation is a disaster.
So how do you,
Seem like we really need to get a few more dinghy floats
Well,
before next season.
we're gonna try to, the DOT, it won't be before next season though, because it's too late to get in, but DOT,
it's actually Bureau of Parks and Land, I think.
oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, I thought it was DOT, but it's Bureau of Parks and Land.
Oh,
Because
okay.
of-
In
yeah.
the winter time, when they're not doing anything else, they build floats and sell them for cheap to municipalities. But that's gonna be a year away because the deadline to get that in, I think was July something, or the 26th spring. So anyhow, I'll work on getting some for the 27th spring, which we'll use somehow. But I'm gonna try to get on the warrant this year, cause they said no last year, it was in a way, the tax base increase was like 18%, and then they said, no, we're not gonna add to that. So anyhow.
Not tax base, the taxes.
I noticed that.
And I assume
So-
the town does not have the manpower to build some floats over the winter?
Well, we might be. We'll be discussing that a little bit too. The other thing is that they normally do freshwater floats, so we need to do a special order for saltwater.
Yeah, it's a
ones.
different material, that's all.
'Cause they said they do. Did you talk to them?
I
Yeah.
talked to, not the right person, but I
Right.
talked to somebody there.
Yeah, okay.
So anyhow, we need to get on the budget for 2 floats and a ramp, if you and I agree on that.
Yes.
And the ramp would go from the, town dock floats to the new, dinghy floats up along the bulkhead for Maine Maritime. That way we won't have that blockage of all the stuff going moving back and forth. So you lose a couple of dinghy spaces, but you'll be able to let the water move through easier, and you're only gonna have to have 2 floats, so that's what we're thinking.
Hey, David, maybe the Hatch Cove float production crew should put in a quote for the town.
We could do That's your winter project?
Do
It takes us 4 days.
Yeah, that's true, but you have to. We invest quite a bit of dough. Yeah, but we got a talented crew. Yeah, we do.
We build floats on the cheap, man, I'm telling you.
The plates and hardware have arrived, so we'll be installing them next week on where the pylons meet the beams. So those will go in hopefully next week if I get Joey and. I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna, because they're not all on the outside, there's some on the inside.
Say that again.
The plates, there's some missing on the inside,
Yes,
so you gotta get in there somehow on some type of a little platform to do that, which I don't have. But we'll figure it out.
just a. There may be enough space to put one of the dinghy floats in there. Between the pilings.
Yeah, you could probably put them in there at low tide and then let them come up inside.
Yep.
The high tide, yeah.
Yep.
But you can't get them in there at high tide because the cross braces are in the way.
Right.
All right,
You're just gonna have to look and see what time it.
Yeah, you wanna, because as it rises up, you're gonna have a lot of buoyancy under
You gotta get
it.
it in, it's declining low tide, maybe a couple hours in there to get the ladders in and work.
well, anyhow, we'll try to figure it out
Yeah.
next week.
They aren't, so.
Landings have gone from like 20 to 25 a day down to 4 or 5 a day, so it's not a lot going on there. And we, like I said, we are advertising for the pump out on weekends and that's getting utilized. I think that's really about all that's going on down there.
So 16th, huh, for the floats?
Yeah,
We gotta get those
Yeah, I-
things, or the aluminum,
if you could tell Dana, I thought he would be here, so
oh, I will tell Dan.
about the.
But the aluminum anodes from where we can't reach all the way to the MMA need to be done.
I know,
down.
I'll talk to Greg again. I talked to him about 2 weeks ago before I was sure how far they could go on their own and they're done. And Joey
They
told
are
me last
done.
week they're done all they can do, so I'll call Greg and see if he can come down and do the rest of them.
Yeah,
Oh, the
We have-
folding gazebos and the covers were off, were they taken off on purpose or was that?
Yes.
They were.
Yeah.
So
You
you
know, one of them might not have been.
What? Well, one of them, one of the 4 was ripped and that was gone a long time ago. There's been 3 down there and they left yesterday, I think.
Yeah, and don't forget the roof that
Yeah,
you're
I'm
working
gonna
on
go
that.
measure that. That's not a big deal. Who's gonna do it?
You think Joe and Corey can do it? On one of
They
those?
could, but I mean, they don't seem to have a lot of time.
Well, I'm hoping to get them some manpower here in the next week or so.
All right.
and then there's the no wake buoy that's really very close to the town mooring. I mean, it's within 30 feet of the town mooring.
You want it moved? Is that what you're saying? I mean, to me,
It
I've
has-
been watching the boats come and go, even Nautilus Island, they have to go around everything and I would move it a little, but I wouldn't move it a lot.
Well, this isn't a drift, no wake buoy, it's moved down onto basically the town.
They're all moving. I think they're all short cheated on line and chain and then went on real.
Well, make that
astronomical
town
high,
mooring,
just
not
moved.
that it's a big issue this time of year, but it's no longer usable.
Right.
Is the further one, south?
Closer to Bowden.
And out, well, the further one.
Yeah, I
down
know
there,
one.
Is that ours or is that the?
Oh, I don't know which one's which.
I don't know.
Yeah,
The
because
way you
one,
can,
the further one out is underwater at high tide.
Yeah,
the way you can tell which ones are, the 2 that are ours are hooked on the side, not on the
Okay.
bottom. And so they tip with the tide.
Yep.
And the other ones don't.
I think that must be ours, because I'm pretty sure it was dead, but it was underwater, Scotty, just so you
Yeah.
know.
well, the currents have been.
Yeah, well, it is, but you know, I'm underwater.
Those aren't big enough.
Strong
They're
current.
just flat out not big enough. And sometime we're gonna have to budget the town to get some real no wake buoys.
Yeah.
So what's the status on the gazebo?
I think that has a priority over the floats. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting for Ted to give me his final design. And then, we'll do it, but I think we'll be able to bang out some floats in the gazebo.
Yep, over the winter?
Uh-huh.
Right.
As long as,
There's
as long
no
as
snow,
people can.
there's no
pound
grass
nails,
going.
screws, I think we can get them in.
Any questions?
I did get together with Ted and what he's got looked okay to me.
Okay, I haven't talked to him since about 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, so, alright.
Well, thank you, Scott. Any further questions for Scott? Well, I don't have any. I did meet with Roberta and Ina about the comprehensive plan and marine resources and moving forward. They want some input from the committee. JT, your name came up. Roberta was going to ask you about participating.
Okay.
So you may wanna hide.
Yeah, I'm not.
But the intent is that there would also be welcoming any really input from anybody on the committee. And so if that's something you want to engage in, then we need to be in touch with them. Because this is all filling out the larger harbor plan and the plan in for the harbor in regards to the development. And so on.
Those- Appointees are through you first, right?
For which one?
Or any of the committees to do with the.
The comprehensive plan.
Yeah, they go through, Ina and Roberta have been looking at the various people, yeah,
Okay,
and then they bounce it off me.
Is it comprehensive plan for the whole town, or are you talking about just the harbor?
Well, it is a whole town piece, but this is
The
the
section
harbor
of it.
and marine resource piece. So, the initial guidance I gave them is to start looking at the geographic boundaries that constitute the waters of Castine, and then keep moving from there.
So Dave, I got a question. I read your comments. You had two things about location for additional parking and location for another ramp, possible ramp. And I wasn't sure. The parking, I think, is that pump house on Spring Street. Is that what this parking spot is? The concept of an additional boat ramp that would have parking and so on. I think is a really tough nut to crack, but to me, there are a couple of locations that could work, but I think it'd be a tough sell. But anyway, the first one is at the corner of Spring Street and Water Street. Oh, at the end there, right? There is a lot that has covered with alders just below the water treatment, the water building. And that seems to me like it's a place you could put a parking lot for boat trailers, boats, and if
how would you access it?
off of where, right down Water Street, it's right at the corner there, on the inside of the corner.
Yeah, oh, okay, I was somewhere else.
And then, if Spring Street could be continued all the way to the water, that would be a very unpopular thing for a few people on Water Street to contemplate. But, at one point, I think Spring Street actually did go to the water. And that was given away by the town years ago. But that's one possible location where a ramp could be put in. The other one that I come up with is at Grindle Eddy up at, and where the brook goes down on 199, right at the Castine Penobscot line, on just the Castine side of it. That's in a natural area. But if it were possible you could make a launch ramp there, and it would be below the Narrows and could be effective. Either one of those is gonna be a tough sell, but
Yeah, is that where the alewives come through?
say again, is that?
No.
No, it's a different spot.
It's 4 miles out of town.
Isn't there a storm water drainage on Water Street?
Yeah.
That we lost some of that? Couldn't that be a ramp potential location?
The stormwater
Drainage on Water Street?
at that location,
No, it's on Water Street. And there was a loss of land because of the storm there. It's all got all that Japanese knotwood in it. But that is direct access to the water at the stormwater location in
You
town.
mean the one that feeds all the way from the golf course down through, right
I don't know where it starts. I know where it comes out.
Well, it comes across State Street and down through, and then it's, who's the guy that has the little wooden, thing there with the bluish house? So you get rid of the cliffs, it's the end of the cliffs, and then it starts flattening out right there, yeah.
It's a giant concrete culvert under
Yeah.
the road.
Under the road there.
I used to play
You
it.
really
Yeah,
wanna do
my
that.
son's played in it.
There's a.
I think it's
there's a-
plastic
What
now.
used to
Maybe
be
plastic.
a
Yeah.
town
Right.
ramp
When was the last time you were
to
there?
the right hand side.
I've been down there many times, that's why, that's the only one I can think of was that one right there.
That's
Yes.
all town right now.
It's not very much, room.
My father and I.
It's also right where the little
Yeah.
rocks are,
I
had
think
area
that
on
was a
that front
private-
lawn.
No, that was town.
That was town.
Where I stopped the block and now
I think
they're.
that was town owned all the way to that bulkhead on.
You can't even drive through there, you
And
imagine,
then over
trailer
the
backing up.
Led into the earth.
It's almost impossible to, somebody
And that
building
was
something,
gravel,
work.
maintained ramp.
Through there. Yeah, what is
Back then, in the long term.
Okay,
I
is there
remember
any
you mentioned it,
new
I
It'd be
remember.
business?
nice to know if we still own it.
It would take a good deal of sleuthing to try and figure out if any of these possibilities could work.
That would be the
And
easy
it-
one.
And it might, it might end up with eminent domain type of thing to
But we would have
get it
to
if we
prove,
wanted to.
wouldn't we have to prove that the current one is over capacity or? You
Yeah, that'd be
know,
a hard sell.
yeah,
The property just past Eaton's Boatyard, which has been for sale for quite a while. Could there be a ramp there?
you got $700,000 and it could be anything.
Just so you know, Eaton's boatyard.
Well, my first choice was to buy the Smith's place, so this is a bargain.
Eaton's boatyard
Our-
owns the rights to that water,
Uh-huh.
just so you know. So that probably is not gonna happen.
Well, I don't know.
Our town
When I
ramp
talk to him.
could be improved. Significantly if we had floats that went along the bulkhead. And the ramp diverges from the bulkhead. And so it is possible to, we've got a 9 foot wide float at the end there. And if we just made floats that gradually narrowed out, and they might only be 2 feet wide up toward the top. But that could work, and that for launching at least small boats and stuff, having a ramp alongside is.
And if the floats were in front of the Acadia dock on the western side, they'd prevent the seaweed from going into the boat basin as well.
Oh, no, going.
Yeah. Anyway, as I think those are all good pieces for the 18th discussion. Is there any
I'd like
further
to-
new business?
I'd like to move we adjourn.
It's not 7 o'clock yet.
It just, I had, on this thing that I had written, I had put together 3 different classes of things to do, the stuff that needs to be done right away, stuff that ought to be done in the next year or two, and then the long-term stuff. And, obviously, there probably are some more things that could be added to it, but I think having a good detailed list in this report of what we would like, and put in a way that it's easy to understand.
Mhm.
The table that she had there, I got lost.
Yeah, I like the idea of some kind of timeline associated with that plan.
Yeah, like this one we should be doing within
Yeah.
2 years, this
Like
one we need to
what's
do
really
within
important to do
4
right
years.
now and what's not,
Yeah.
it's an easy thing to do if you,
So please take these ideas home with you, jot them down and come back on the 18th ready to put some work in.
Okay, you have,
All in
You have
favor, all in favor of adjourning?
Yo.
Alright. Thank you, Derek.
you're welcome.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, all right.